and the arts.
Thank you. Senator Keneally.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck. Can the minister confirm that over the past 2 years, almost 30,000 Australians died while waiting for their approved home care package? How is this acceptable?
The Minister for Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have canvassed this issue a number of times in the chamber before, and no one, government or in opposition, I'm sure, Senator Keneally either, wants to see people passing away while they're waiting for a home care package. And, Mr. President, that is why we've invested so heavily in home care packages since coming to government. Mr. President, well, Senator Keneally clearly hasn't been listening when we've been providing this information in the chamber before. When we came to government, Mr. President, there were 60,000 home care packages in the market. As of today, there are 146,000 plus home care packages in the market, and that will be 150,000 home care packages by the end of this financial year. A significant increase, in fact an investment of over $2.7 billion, Mr. President, $2.7 billion since the budget before last. We have made a significant investment. We put 10,000 additional places into the market on the back of the interim report of the Royal Commission, Mr. President, because the Royal Commission drew our attention to that issue. We want to see the waiting time for Australians waiting for home care packages be reduced. That's why we've continued to invest in new home care packages and invest into the aged care sector. We will continue to do that. Mr. President, there's a couple of numbers Senator Keneally should remember. Order. $387 billion and zero. $387 billion of taxes that the Labor Party promised at the last election, and zero
Order.
aged care
Senator
packages.
Colbeck, please resume your seat. Please resume your seat. Order. I'll take Senator Keneally's point. Order on my right. Senator Keneally on a point of order.
Direct relevance, Mr. President. The question was fairly narrowly construed and made no mention of tax policy, either the government's nor that of the Labor opposition. It was specifically about whether or not it was acceptable that 30,000 people had died waiting for a home care package on their watch.
Until that straying in the last few seconds, I considered the minister directly relevant. The attention's been drawn to the question. He has 3 seconds remaining.
$387 billion in taxes and zero home care packages, Mr. President.
If I could address this myself, I'm happy to address this. I'm going to ask ministers that if I do say someone is not being directly relevant, to not get up and say the same thing again. That material was not directly relevant, and I actually said so. In the other place, the chair unilaterally sits down ministers. I have not taken that option, but if that happens, I will. Senator Keneally, a supplementary question.
I am willing to accord the minister 3 extra seconds if he'd like to correct.
Time's expired. I'll set the clock again so you can commence your supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Why are up to half of all older Australians in residential aged care malnourished?
Senator Colbeck.
Did you know that?
Mr. President, I haven't had that particular statistic put forward to me specifically, and I, Mr. President, and I don't believe, Mr. President, I don't believe if that is the case. I don't believe that is the if that's the case. If that's the case, it is acceptable. That would not be acceptable to me. It would not be acceptable to government.
Order.
And quite frankly, that would mean, Mr. President, that would mean that 50% of the aged care providers in this country are not meeting the standards that are established under the Quality and Safety Commission. That would mean that 50% of residents receiving care would be the providers providing that care would be in breach of their Quality and Safety Commission their quality standards obligations, because providing high-quality care and food.
Order, Senator
is clearly
Colbeck. Time for the answer has expired. Senator Keneally, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. Why is the Morrison government's priority to privatise aged care assessment services, a demonstrably successful service that older Australians and their families rely upon and trust, instead of ensuring that older Australians are receiving the quality aged care services they deserve now?
Senator Colbeck.
The government has never said that it was going to privatise aged care assessment services. It has never said that. It has been stated by others in the media that that's what was going to happen, but the government has never stated that. In fact, on a number of occasions, Mr President, I have refuted that. I have refuted that. The Tune Review, if Senator Keneally bothered to do some research into the history of this sector, recommended the Tune Review. I will take your interjection, Senator Polley. The Tune Review recommended combining ACATs and RASs in its 2017 report. The Tune Review recommended that we do that. The Royal Commission, in its interim report, Mr President, said it was an urgent reform. That is why we are continuing with that reform, because the Tune Review recommended it in 2017 and the Aged Care Royal Commission said it was urgent.
Time for the answer has expired. Senator Henderson.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. Can the Minister representing the Prime Minister inform the Senate how the Morrison government is building a stronger economy which rewards hard-working Australians?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank Senator Henderson for that question. And, Mr President, let me say up front, it's really good to be here. It's really good to be here. And it's really good to be here to explain to the Senate what the Morrison government is doing to build a stronger economy, creating better opportunities for the Australian people to get ahead.
Order.
Because, of course, when we came into government, we inherited from the Labor Party a weakening economy, rising unemployment, a rapidly deteriorating budget position. We worked hard to turn that around. Last financial year, the budget returned to balance. This year, we are on track to return the budget to surplus. And, of course, we have the first current account surplus in 40 years. We have the lowest welfare dependency in more than 30 years. We have been able the biggest tax cuts in more than 20 years, leaving more money in people's pockets. And indeed, Mr. President, more than 1.5 million new jobs created under our period in government. In fact, in December, our employment rate fell to 5.1%. When Labor lost government, it was on the way past 6%. And indeed, Mr. President, retail trade volumes in the December quarter grew by 0.5%, the strongest increase in a year and a half. Household disposable income in the September quarter had its biggest rise in a decade under our government, Mr. President, And indeed, building approvals are up by almost 3% year on year. This week, the Westpac Melbourne Institute survey on consumer survey was up by 2.3%. We are delivering for the Australian people. While the Labor Party treats this institution with disrespect, we continue to do the job for the Australian people, building a stronger economy, creating more jobs, creating more opportunities for Australians to get ahead. That is why the Australian people re-elected us at the last election. That is why they voted against your socialist agenda, which they knew would leave every Australian worse off.
Senator Henderson, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the Minister representing the Prime Minister outline how the Morrison government's energy policies are supporting a strong economy?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, our policies are all about delivering more affordable, more reliable energy supplies in a way that helps us meet our emissions reduction targets. And of course, on this side of the chamber, we understand that it's very important to have a responsible and environmentally sustainable energy mix, including, of course, a very strong commitment to renewables. We are leading the world when it comes to the investment in renewables. But we also understand the need, of course, to ensure that we have got affordable and reliable supplies based on coal and gas. I mean, coal is and remains important to our energy security and our energy affordability. Not only does it provide cheap power, it also provides tens of thousands of jobs across regional communities, and of course exporting Australian coal helps us to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions, which is why Labor should be supporting.
Order, Senator Cormann. Senator Henderson, a final supplementary question.
Is the minister representing the Prime Minister aware of any similar energy policies?
Senator Cormann.
Mr. President, yes, I am. Senator Farrell and the Otis Group. Senator Farrell and the Otis Group.
Order. Senator. I've got Senator Wong on. Order. Senator Wong on a point of order.
It was a very big wind-up, but actually, yesterday probably should have taken a point of order on a similar question, I think, from Senator Rennick, which is there must be some reference to government policies. That wording was slightly better than yesterday's, but I would ask you—
let me hear the point of order.
Well, you are very excited today, aren't you? You're very excited. Very excited.
Order. Senator Wong.
I would ask you, Mr. President, there is a lot of precedent associated with this type of questions. It generally is a form of wording which the government is not complying with. I ask you to consider that.
Well, Senator Canavan on the point of order.
Order, Mr. President. The reference here in this question, or the relevance of the Otis Group, is about government policy because it's a group of Labor MPs who want to adopt the government policy.
Senator Canavan. Order. After yesterday, I did consult the clerk on this matter with my ability to potentially foresee a question. The previous ruling that's been applied by numerous presidents, Seibert, Reid and Calvert, is that a question which invites a minister to comment on the policies or actions of non-government parties is out of order unless the question seeks an expression of the government's intentions in some matter of ministerial responsibility. Now, in my view, yesterday's question probably crossed that line. I will let the minister continue this, but I will review the Hansard on the basis that this question, which I don't have detailed notes of, asked for the minister's awareness. And so I will not rule it out of order at this point, but I will review the Hansard. And can I urge my colleagues who do ask questions to keep those standing orders in mind?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm optimistic about our future because we now know that Senator Farrell is leading the next generation of Labor leaders into supporting more responsible economic policies, and that is a great thing. And courtesy of Channel 10, we now know who the members of this coal industry, coal workers supporting Otis Group are. And indeed, we've got— Senator Sterle is on there twice. Senator Sterle is on there twice.
Order. Order. Senator Cormann. Senator Wong, were you raising a point of order? I was consulting the clerk, so I—
It's going to hold up a prop.
Oh, well, if props are not appropriate, my apologies, I was consulting the clerk. I'll call Senator Cormann to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Quite a few Labor senators on there. Senator Sterle appears there twice. Is he particularly committed, or is he covering for somebody else? Maybe he's covering for Senator Sheldon, because he wrote a big job application for the Otis Group 9 years ago. In fact, it was written up by one Matthew Franklin. One Matthew Franklin, you might know who that is. I think he might work in Mr. Albanese's office, because Senator Sheldon appeared in front of my inquiry when he described Labor green carbon taxes as death taxes.
Order, Senator Cormann. Order, Senator Cormann. Time for the answer has expired. Senator Muriel-Smith. Order.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Defence Industry, Senator Cormann. The former Minister for Defence confirmed that 90% of the work on the submarine project will be Australian. Today, the Australian reports, and I quote, "Local firms may not get half of the value of the subs contracts." Can the minister confirm what the actual level of Australian content will be?
The Minister representing the Minister for Defence Industry, Senator Cormann.
What I can assure Senator Smith about is that the Australian industry content, building the next generation of submarines, is going to be massively higher than it would have been under Labor. Massively higher than under Labor.
Senator Wong on a point of order.
I know he's very excited, Mr. President, but direct relevance. This is a serious question about the largest procurement in the nation's history. It is asking this minister representing the Defence Minister what the actual level of Australian content will be. Now, I know he's very excited, wants to play politics, but if he could answer the question about people's jobs, we would really— I'm sure South Australians and Western Australians would appreciate it.
Senator Wong, you've raised your point of order. The minister was halfway through his sentence. I'm not going to rule halfway through his first sentence on direct relevance. You've reminded the minister of the question. I'll call him to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It is our government that has committed to build the next generation of submarines. It is our government that has made the necessary decisions and put on the table the necessary investment, and it is our government that is absolutely committed to maximising Australian industry involvement. Absolutely committed to that. But let me tell you the reason why my opening remarks were entirely relevant, directly relevant to the question, is because what we are looking at now and the level of Australian industry content on the back of our decisions to build 12 new submarines for Australia is under Labor in 6 years. What was there? Nothing. Did they decide to build a single submarine, even half a submarine? No, nothing, zero. Oh, like Otis. This is what we get from the Labor Party. So the people in South Australia, the people in Australia generally know that this is the government that is committed to not only ensure that our defence forces have got the capability they need, but that
our— Senator Wong, on a point of order.
Point of order, direct relevance. Some of us, I think the Australian people do want to know what the level of Australian content is. That has been asked by Senator Patrick, Senator Griff. Today it's being asked by the Labor Party. We'd ask the minister to respond to the question.
On the point of order, you've restated the question, Senator Wong. When the minister was talking about Australian content and the building of the project, I do consider that to be directly relevant because I cannot instruct him how to answer a question. Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Under our government, we have committed to building 12 new submarines, and we are committed to maximising Australian industry content. And the Australian people know that under Labor, not a single cent was invested in our future submarine capability.
Senator Smith, a supplementary question.
When did the minister become aware that less than 50% of the work for the future submarines would be done in Australia?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I don't accept the premise of the question, and I refer Senator Smith to my previous answer.
Senator Smith, a final supplementary question.
When did the Morrison government advise the South Australian Liberal government that the level of local content would be less than 50% of the value of the contracts?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As Senator Payne just rightly observed, just because you keep repeating the same false assertion doesn't make it come true. I reject the premise of the question, and as I've said in my primary answer, we are absolutely committed to maximising Australian industry content.
Senator Faruqi.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann. Your government has relentlessly attacked students striking for climate action. The Prime Minister said kids should go to school. The Deputy Prime Minister denounced anything that would disrupt schools. Even you, Minister Cormann, said during the school time kids should be in school. But because your government's inaction on the climate crisis has made natural disasters more frequent and intense, the bushfires disrupted the education of tens of thousands of students this summer. On just one day in November, my home state of New South Wales saw more than 600 schools shut down. Will you acknowledge that your criminal inaction on climate emergency is the real disruption to students?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I thank Senator Faruqi for that question. Let me confirm for Senator Faruqi that the government and every single Liberal national senator is firmly of the view that children should attend school during school time. Firmly of that view. That has been our view, it remains our view, it will be our view in the future. Let me also say that our government is absolutely committed to effective action on climate change. What we are not proposing to do is to harm Australian families, to harm young people in Australia and their future prospects by forcing them to accept sacrifices which will make the global environment worse off. I mean, shifting their jobs and economic activity from Australia into other parts of the world by imposing burdens that will actually lead to higher pollution levels in other parts of the world is not in the best interest of the Australian people, and it's not in the best interest of school children around Australia who rely on us to have opportunities in the future. So we will continue to do the right thing by pursuing a policy agenda that is environmentally effective and economically responsible. We know that that is not your view. We know that you have a more extreme view where you're quite happy to harm the future opportunities of Australian families in order to make yourself feel better domestically, even though emissions globally will be higher as a result of your actions. That is not something that we will ever do.
Senator Faruqi, a supplementary question.
When the Prime Minister said the worst thing he could impose on any child is needless anxiety, he ignored students' fears about their future under a climate-denying government. Their fears were realised as the fires forced students from their classrooms and their homes. Will you now admit students' climate anxiety is real and won't go away until there is strong action on the climate emergency?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, I mean, let me just say, I think that the Australian Greens have got a lot to answer for when it comes to unnecessary anxieties among young people. Unnecessary anxieties among young people. What we are committed to do is to do the right thing by the environment in a way that is economically responsible and in a way that is responsible in consideration of the future opportunities that young people across Australia are going to rely on. We will continue to take effective action on climate change. Our emissions reduction targets on a per capita basis is among the highest in the world. By 50% we are proposing to reduce emissions on a per capita basis. By 2/3 we are proposing to reduce emissions on an emissions intensity unit per GDP, emissions per unit of GDP basis. It is one of the most ambitious targets all around the world. But of course, when the Greens are sitting there shaking their head, we just have to agree to disagree. We will continue to go to the Australian people and say we are committed to effective action on climate change. We are committed to an environmental policy agenda that is environmentally effective but economically responsible. You go and do it your way.
Expired. Senator Faruqi, a final supplementary question.
The Liberals and Nationals have spent more time criticising brave children working for a better future than they have fixing their disastrous pro-coal climate policies that have us hurtling towards 3 degrees of warming. Will you now apologise to the climate strike students who are doing more than your government to fight the climate crisis?
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, I don't quite know how not attending school helps to reduce emissions, I've got to tell you. I don't really know. And let me also tell you something else. Like Senator Sheldon, I was very much of the view that the Labor-Green carbon tax was actually making things worse and was not something that should be supported. And now, of course, we know that there is an opportunity for a bipartisan energy policy and a bipartisan climate policy in the future, because we are looking forward to working with the Otis Group in the Labor Party to ensure that there is sensible economic policy for Australia where we have environmentally effective and economically responsible policies moving forward. It is great to see that those people in the Labor Party that wanted to harm Australian families through their Labor Green carbon tax are losing influence and that Senator Farrell is taking charge.
Senator Griff.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Minister Colbeck. This week, the ABC Investigations Unit highlighted the fact that aged care facilities can employ as few staff as they like, and that a study of 800 nursing homes showed the average food spend for residents was a paltry $6 a day. The ABC story also referenced an amendment I put forward in December, which would have required aged care providers to reveal what proportion of their funds they actually spent on delivering care and how much goes to other things like lining the pockets of their parent bodies. The government, joined by Senator Hanson and Senator Roberts, voted against this simple but necessary reform. Why does the government not believe that the sector needs to be more transparent in how it spends taxpayer dollars?
The Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Senator Griff, for the question. It is an important question to discuss, and this government has worked extremely hard over recent years, including calling the Royal Commission, to conduct an extensive review of the industry and how we might redesign it moving forward. So the issues that Senator Griff, talks about will be, quite rightly, considered as part of that Royal Commission process, and I'm certain that Senator Alliance and those associated will make representations to the Royal Commission appropriately to put those issues forward. The legislation that we passed last year came out of recommendations of the Carnell-Paterson Review into the terrible circumstances that occurred in South Australia. at a government-owned nursing home there. And that was to bring together into one organisation the regulatory works of the Quality and Safety Commissioner, all under one roof, rather than having them split between the Quality and Safety Commission, which we created as part of the recommendation process of the Carnell-Paterson Review at the beginning of last year, and we've brought all of that under the umbrella of one organisation, which was part of those recommendations. It was important, Mr President, that that legislation passed before Christmas, because the new body was due to be formed on the 1st of January this year, which it was. The government believes, even though those issues that Senator Griffiths talks about are important, and there are measures being put in place with respect to transparency, the measures in the amendments brought forward by Senator Griff were best considered in the context of the Royal Commission rather than just through an amendment in the chamber. And so the government is quite happy to consider those things in that context.
Time for the answer has expired. Senator Griff, a supplementary question.
In its interim report, the Royal Commission noted that there is no public information on the way providers use taxpayer funds and individual contributions to deliver aged care services. Government hasn't waited for the final Royal Commission report before considering privatising ACAT and the Regional Assessment Service. What's the difference here, Minister?
Senator Colbeck.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, a significant difference. And it's not completely true that there are no financial records available for the expenditure in aged care facilities, because the publicly listed companies are all publicly listed, are reported publicly. So if you're interested in some of that detail, go and have a look there. It's true for many that it's not, and that may very well form part of the recommendations of the Royal Commission, which will be brought down on the 9th of November this year. But the difference in what you're talking about and the reforms that we're undertaking goes to the answer that I gave Senator Keneally earlier, and that is that the combination of ACAT, and I refute the terminology being utilised by those on the other side with respect to privatisation, because I don't believe that that's the case. And that is not what we've said publicly. It's what the media have said and what others have said, is that this follows on recommendations of the Carnell-Paterson Review and, in fact, the Royal Commission.
Senator Griff, a final supplementary question.
A few days, Minister, responding to my motion calling on the government to legislate for financial transparency, Senator Duniam, and in fact you virtually repeated it there, stated that the government recognises the need for financial transparency and access of senior Australians and their families to information to help them make informed decisions, and we have included some measures in this regard. What measures in this regard was Senator Duniam and yourself referring to?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr President, some of the transparency measures that we've already put in place would be particularly in respect of clinical care, and there are 3 clinical care indicators that were required to be reported by the sector starting from the 1st of July last year. There are 2 more that are being considered now, Mr President, and we will continue consulting with the sector. And in fact, I wrote to the Advisory Committee to the Quality and Safety Commission late last year, asking them to report back to me about what other regulatory tools the Quality and Safety Commission might need. I've received that report, Mr President, and I've in fact referred that report to the Royal Commission so that they can quite properly consider those things in the context of their report that will come back to this year.
Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston. Can the Minister inform the Senate as to why it is important to maintain a consistent policy approach to the Australian resources sector?
The Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and can I thank Senator McDonald for her question, because, like me, she understands the huge importance of the resources sector to her home state of Queensland as well as my home state of South Australia. And we are absolutely committed in this, on this side of the chamber to the stable management of the resources sector, which is booming. It's generating record profits, record exports, record royalties, and it's paying record taxes. But most importantly, it is generating jobs in rural and regional Australia. Resource sector accounts for about 8% of Australia's GDP, and 59% of our export earnings. $279 billion in 2018-19. Iron ore, $77 billion. LNG exports, $50 billion. But guess what? 245,000 Australians are employed in the resource sector. That's 2% of our workforce. Absolutely extraordinary. And it's one of the fastest-growing employers in Australia. 94,000 more people work in the mining and resource sector today than they did in 2005. And many of these jobs are highly skilled. They're highly skilled jobs, and they're also in rural and regional Australia. And it is our resources sector that enables us to be able to sustain this level of workforce outside of our capital cities. And to ensure this is continued and to maintain our resource sector and to maintain something that is the backbone of our regional communities, the Australian government is absolutely committed to further investment in ensuring that our resource sector continues to go from strength to strength. Whether it be removing red tape or supporting our workforce, we are behind our resources sector.
Senator McDonald, a supplementary question.
Can the minister advise as to the importance of the coal mining sector, in particular to the Australian economy?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much. And a very important part of our resources sector is our coal mining sector. Australia is the largest exporter of metallurgical coal and the second largest exporter of thermal coal, $70 billion to the Australian economy, and $6 billion paid in royalties. And that $6 billion pays for schools, pays for hospitals, pays for roads. But I'd like to take the opportunity to just fact-check the Greens today, because this morning the ABC confirmed that there are in fact more people working in the coal industry than as baristas. The fact is that 16,700 full-time baristas in Australia, whereas the coal industry actually employs in excess of 50,000 people. And those 50,000 people actually happen to be in the home state of Senator McDonald, who asked the question, but also Senator Waters, who is also a Queensland senator. And let's not forget the
Order,
$2 billion—
Senator Ruston. Time for the answers expired. Senator McDonald, a final supplementary question.
Is the minister aware of any similar policy approaches to maintaining a strong coal mining sector, supporting a stronger economy?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Senator McDonald. Well, I'm not quite sure. However, one thing that I can be sure of is that I am confused about what the policy on the other side is in relation to jobs in the mining sector. Probably quite unusual for Senator Farrell and I to be on a unity ticket when it comes to rural and regional jobs, but we certainly have been on a unity ticket when it comes to the wine industry, and once again we are on a unity ticket when it comes to supporting rural and regional jobs in our resources sector. Perhaps those opposite that are having a fun time interjecting might actually take consideration of the impact of the Carmichael coal mine. $2 billion, and guess how many jobs have already been created at the Carmichael coal mine? Over 800 in Queensland in the home. But perhaps we might remember that Senator Farrell is supporting rural and regional jobs.
Order,
perhaps you should
Senator
too.
Ruston. Senator O'Neill. Senator O'Neill. On my left, I'm calling one of your colleagues, Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck. In response to the Morrison government's plans to put aged care assessment services out to tender, New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazzard has revealed that New South Wales has major concerns and that the plan lacks logic. Is Mr Hazzard correct?
The Minister for Aged Care and Senior Australians, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, Mr President, I disagree with Mr Hazzard, quite clearly. And I disagree with Mr Hazzard because I'm actually implementing a recommendation from the Tune Review, and I'm actually doing what the Royal Commission said in its interim report last year, which is this reform is urgent. Who said that? So, Mr President, I understand Mr Hazzard has a perspective on this, and I have spoken to Mr Hazzard with respect to these reforms. We had a conversation earlier in the year, and we have a different point of view, Mr President. We have a different point of view. Mr Hazzard believes that New South Wales government should do all aged care assessments. I don't agree with him. I actually don't agree with him. The Tune Review, Mr President, doesn't agree with him. And the Royal Commission says, get on with it. The Royal Commission says the reform recommended in the Tune Review is urgent. So, Mr President, I do have a difference of opinion with Mr Hazzard, the New South Wales Minister. We will continue our dialogue with New South Wales. Mr Hazzard's been very, very open with me. He sent me a number of documents that have given me the opportunity to work through the New South Wales perspective, and we will continue to have that dialogue, Mr President, because the one thing that I'm really determined to see, and I know Mr Hazzard is also determined to see, is that when people go through an assessment process, they get an assessment that is appropriate, it provides appropriately for their needs, it refers them to the services that are appropriate for their needs, and they then get access to those services, Mr President. So, in the context of our core desires, Mr President, Mr Hazzard and I are on exactly the same plane. We have a different perspective on how that might be achieved, Mr President.
Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr President. In response to his Liberal colleague's criticism, Mr Colbeck claimed that the government's plan to put aged care assessment services out to tender was supported by the Royal Commission into aged care quality and safety. Does the minister stand by this claim?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr President, I've just in my previous answer indicated a couple of things with respect to the process that we're currently going through right now. Firstly, Mr President.
Order. Senator O'Neill, on a point of order.
So I'm listening very carefully. The minister has just wound up to indicate he's going to talk about a process. I've got no process question embedded in what I asked. It was simply, does the minister stand by his claim with regard to a statement of the Royal Aged Commissioner?
The minister was clearly preparing to answer. We cannot take points of order on what a minister may be saying. I have to listen carefully to what he is saying. I will listen carefully, but with respect, he has been speaking for about 14 seconds. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Thank you, Mr President. This is an important reform that was recommended by the Tune Review, and the Royal Commission said in its—
Senator O'Neill, on a point of order. Sorry, I was watching and listening to Senator Colbeck. I missed you standing.
My question goes nowhere near the Tune Review. My question goes to the minister's claim that the government's plan to put out aged care services to tender was supported by the Royal Commission into aged care quality and safety. That is it. That's all there is. There's nothing else to work with, Senator Colbeck.
You reminded the minister of his question. I heard him talking about the government's plans. I can't instruct him how to answer a question. I've given you the opportunity to remind him of it again. I will listen carefully to his remaining 28 seconds. Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. In context and in timeline, this reform was recommended by Tune in 2017, and the Royal Commission, in its report last year, said the reform was urgent. And yes, I do believe that supports my view that this reform should go ahead.
Senator O'Neill, final supplementary question.
Oh, it should have been a point of order on that non-answer, but anyway, sorry. The chair of the Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety, Commissioner Pagoni, has had to publicly refute the minister's claim, stating that the Commission's interim report, and I quote, and this is what he said, did not endorse the government's stated position. Will the minister correct the record? Has the minister apologised to the Commission for falsely stating its position?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Thank you, Mr President. My statements always have been in the context of the Tune Review recommendations and the fact that the Royal Commission said that this was an urgent reform. I can actually very much understand the Royal Commission I can very much understand the Royal Commission's statement, given the reporting of my comments versus what I actually said, Mr President, that I was intending to privatise the ACAT services. I have never, ever said that, Mr President. And so I can actually understand the Royal Commission responding to a reporting of my comments that wasn't correct, Mr President.
Order.
And I issued a statement. Immediately I saw the comments of the Royal Commission, acknowledging the primacy of the Royal Commission. I acknowledged the Royal Commission, the work that it was doing, and the government's willingness to engage closely with the Royal Commission
Senator
on these
Colbeck,
reforms.
time for the answer has expired. Senator Molan.
Thank you, Mr President. And my question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Can the minister inform the Senate how the Morrison government's consistent policies are delivering more Australian jobs and getting more Australians off welfare and into work?
The Minister for Employment, Skills for Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Molan for the question because, Mr President, since we were elected to government, this side of politics has ensured that the economy has created in excess now of 1.5 million jobs. Mr President, as of December 2019, we now have a record number of Australians in employment. Almost 13 million Australians are in employment because the Morrison government, the coalition government, has put in place the policies that are ensuring their employers out there are able to prosper, grow and create more jobs for Australians. Additionally, Mr President, we have now record high male employment in Australia, 6,814,300 men. We have record high female employment, and I acknowledge the Minister for Women and the great work that she is doing to increase women's workforce participation, and in particular in light of International Women's Day coming up. We also have record high youth employment in Australia. Almost 2 million young people in Australia are in employment because of the policies that this side of politics, the Liberal national side of politics, have put in place. Mr President, over the calendar year to December 2019, employment increased by over 260,000 jobs. That is above the decade average growth. But also, Mr President, in terms of those jobs, almost 60% of them were full-time jobs. That's right, the policies that we're putting in place on the Liberal national side of the government are able to ensure that all types of jobs are created, but in particular full-time jobs growth is high under this government.
Senator Molan, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. And the supplementary question is, can the minister inform the Senate how the Morrison government is supporting Australians who work in the resources sector?
Senator Cash.
Well, I can, Mr President, and as a senator for Western Australia and also the senators for Queensland in particular, we understand the benefits of the resources sector to Australians, and in particular in rural and regional Australia. At the last election, in fact, you just have to look at the result in the state of Queensland, because what did Queenslanders do? They emphatically endorsed the Morrison government's commitment to mining jobs. What was that, Senator Cormann? How many? 77% of the seats. What did they also do in Queensland? They rejected the Labor opposition's pandering to inner-city elites and the Australian Greens. And why did they do that? Because they understand that the resources sector in Australia creates jobs for Australians. Mr President, the coalition government, the Morrison government, we support mining because the resources sector accounts not just for employment but so much when it comes to the contribution to our GDP.
Order, Senator Cash. Senator Molan, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. And my supplementary question is, are there others who support the government's policy supporting the workers in the resources sector?
Senator Cash.
Well, there are, Mr President, and it will be a little surprise to the Senate tonight that they are ably led by the Godfather himself. One of the wines, I understand, Senator Farrell, on the wine list, it's a Cabernet, $110 a bottle, colleagues, but we don't hold that against you. We don't hold that against you, Senator Farrell. Can I just say, though, colleagues, former Senator Doug Cameron who cannot get over the fact that he was unceremoniously retired from this place. Senator Farrell, you have even gone up more in my esteem, as have the other members in the Senate of the Otis Group, because this is what your, I'd say good friend, but is clearly not, and former colleague has said about you. Given the names associated with this group, I'm not surprised. Not the sharpest tools in the shed. So that was former Senator Doug Cameron cannot help himself. But Senator Farrell, what we say to you, what we say to Senator Sterle, Senator Kitching, Senator Chisholm, Senator Polley, Senator Ciccone, welcome to the world of jobs.
Senator Cash. Order on my right. Order. I'll give you the call when I can hear you, Senator Watt. Senator Watt.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Can the minister confirm that despite Australia experiencing the most devastating bushfires in living memory, the Morrison government has approved only one concessional loan for small businesses in bushfire-affected areas across the entire country?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President. And as Senator Watt would know, the coalition government has announced a comprehensive package, in particular in relation to small businesses. What I can confirm for the Senate is the following. As you'd be aware, Mr President, the states, the state Labor government, the state Victorian government, which is a Labor government, the New South Wales government and the South Australian government are actually responsible for the administration of both the grants and the loans. In relation to New South Wales, I am advised, in relation to the small business grants of up to $50,000 for businesses that are directly affected by the fires, there have been 252—
Senator Watt, on a point of order.
On relevance, the minister is quoting figures about grants. My questions were about loans, and in fact I've only asked something that the Prime Minister confirmed yesterday. She should be on top
Senator
of this.
Watt, I was listening carefully to the minister. I was listening. Order. I'll rule on the point of order when there's silence. I was listening very carefully to the minister. I didn't catch the reference you referred to. Immediately prior to that, the minister was talking about the grants program and its administration, which I do consider to be directly relevant. I'm listening carefully because it was a specific question. Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President. In relation to the grants, 252 applications have been received, 46 grants paid out worth over $690,000, and the average grant requested is just under $30,000.
Senator Wong, on a point of order.
Direct relevance, Mr President. We only asked about the confirmation of one concessional loan across the country for small business.
There's not many of them either, mate.
One concessional loan across the country. We asked the minister to confirm, and as Senator Watt, I think, courteously indicated, it is the figure the Prime Minister confirmed yesterday.
On the point of direct relevance, the minister can be directly relevant to the question by talking about the concessional loan scheme and its administration, as she was earlier. But I do take the point the grant scheme was not in the question. But I remind senators that I can't instruct the minister how to answer the question. Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President. And in relation to the loans, senators will be aware that what the government has done is allow access to loans of up to $500,000. They are being administered through the states, and I can advise in relation to New South Wales, the loan scheme opened on the 3rd of February 2020. 42 applications have been received and are currently under review. The value of the loans requested is around $3,300,000. In relation to Queensland, the concessional loans opened on the 3rd of February 2020.
Senator Watt, on direct relevance?
On direct relevance, the question is about the approval of loans, not applications received,
no, Senator Watt,
not what they're at, approval of loans.
Look, I grant some latitude to people restating the question. My previous ruling was that the minister can be directly relevant by talking about the specific scheme that you referenced. You are seeking to order me how to direct a minister to answer a question which is not appropriate for me to do. There is an opportunity after question time to debate the merits of answers. Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President. In relation to Queensland, concessional loans opened on the 3rd of February 2020. 2 applications have been received and 1 has been approved. The South Australian government has activated the scheme. They have currently got 60 expressions of interest, and guidelines are currently being considered by Victoria and the ACT. Perhaps you could speak to those Labor governments, Senator Watt, and advise them that, yes, they can work with the Commonwealth government because
Senator
they
Cash,
are the ones who actually
time
need to
for the answer
activate
has
the scheme.
expired. Senator Watt, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I refer to the Prime Minister's media release of the 20th of January that assured struggling small businesses in bushfire-affected regions that government support would be, and I quote, immediate. Does the minister seriously suggest that only one bushfire-affected small business was in immediate need of assistance?
Senator Cash.
Well, only those on the opposite side of the chamber, the Labor Party, would want to play politics with what is occurring in relation to the bushfires. Mr President, the bushfires that we saw over the summer have been absolutely devastating, in particular for those who have been directly impacted by the fires, for those who have also been indirectly impacted by the fires. The government has announced a comprehensive package, a $2 billion response package to assist those in need as a result of the devastation of the bushfires. And, Mr President, you see, those on the other side don't seem to understand this. The only reason that this government has been able to respond so quickly with so many different measures, and to the extent that we have been able to, $2 billion, is because we manage a strong
Senator
economy.
Cash. Senator Watt, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I note the minister's comments that Labor is playing politics, and I also note that this week New South Wales Liberal Minister Andrew Constance said that he wants to see better support for small business affected by bushfires, and I quote, "We cannot afford another disaster on a disaster. Our fragile economy is already on its knees." Does the government believe one small business concessional loan is sufficient support?
Senator Cash.
I completely reject the premise of your question, and again, only someone like Senator Watt, who conveniently visited seats in Queensland that we picked up, would be able to play politics with what's going on with the bushfires. Mr President, I have personally spoken to Andrew Constance. Can I assure you he is fully aware of the support that both the state government and the federal government are providing. In relation to New South Wales, at least the New South Wales government have activated their scheme and are currently considering expressions of interest. Senator Watt, perhaps you would like to speak to the Labor state government of Victoria, the Labor state government of the ACT, and advise them as well that they are actually the ones responsible for activating the loans under the scheme. But, Mr President, we have provided a comprehensive response, $2 billion.
Order, Senator
and this
Cash.
is only
time
made
for the answer has expired. Sorry, Senator Wong.
I thank the senator. I seek leave to table the Hansard of the Prime Minister yesterday in the House, confirming only one concessional loan has been approved across the country.
Is leave granted?
There are usual courtesies that apply to tabling documents, and I think Senator Wong knows those courtesies.
Okay, so leave is denied at the moment. Senator Askew.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Payne. Can the minister update the Senate on what progress has been made in improving gender balance on Australian government boards? Thank you.
The Minister for Women, Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you very much to Senator Askew for that question. A fine female senator from Tasmania, Mr President. I also actually want to thank my ministerial colleagues here and in the other place for their commitment to gender diversity when making Australian government board appointments. As of 30 June last year, and the figures have just been released, Australian women held 47.9% of Australian government board positions, which is an all-time high. This is the highest percentage of women on government boards since public reporting began more than a decade ago, and I think it's an achievement that we can all welcome, Mr President. It represents a 7.4 percentage point increase since the gender diversity target of 50% was set in 2016. Positively again, women accounted for 54% of new appointments to government boards, which is an increase of 4.7 percentage points in the 6 months to 30 June 2019. We know that gender diversity on boards and in other leadership positions contributes to more effective and innovative decision-making and outcomes. The government is strongly committed, and I am personally committed, to increasing gender diversity on Australian government boards and to reaching our 50% target. Boards should reflect the full diversity of Australia, and we should use the rich resource of the talent of Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, culturally and linguistically diverse women, LGBTI women, women with disability, women living all over the country. Our progress towards gender balance on government boards is improving leadership choices for Australian women every day. And as a government, we're committed to targeting key areas that promote greater choice for women, as we demonstrated in our Women's Economic Security Statement last year, including by increasing women's workforce participation, supporting economic independence and improving earning potential.
Senator Askew, a supplementary question.
Thank you. Can the minister advise what strategies the government has developed for reaching the 50% target for women on boards?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, and again I thank Senator Askew for her question, because it is important that there is a range of strategies, and the government has a number, to reach that 50% target. It includes the fact that portfolio ministers are specifically asked to do a number of things: to identify female candidates, to encourage external bodies that nominate, that propose nominations to consider gender diversity in that process, and to develop specific strategies with their departments and agencies. Our annual public reporting of gender balance on Australian government boards also plays a really important role in our tracking of progress against our target and in driving change. We maintain the Board Links database to assist portfolios to identify suitably qualified, board-ready female candidates. A number of our departments and our agencies have adopted strategies tailored to their portfolios. Certainly my own has, and I know that the Department of Defence, for example, offers training to diversify their board membership to support the pipeline of board-ready women. These are all positive initiatives and strategies.
Senator Askew, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. What other progress has the government made to improve gender balance in public roles, and how does this compare to other approaches that the minister is aware of?
Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. The government is investing in a range of projects that foster women's leadership. They include Sport Australia's Women Leaders in Sport program, the Council of Small Business Organisation of Australia's Academy for Enterprising Girls, which I had the opportunity to meet last year. They're an absolutely fabulous group, and that's encouraging the next generation of women leaders in STEM and in business. I also want to acknowledge the work of organisations such as the Australian Institute of Company Directors, Commonwealth Bank, for example, who together are using the board-level podcast to promote advice from Australia's leading female directors. And thanks also to groups like the Male Champions of Change for their leadership, with 62.4% of members improving gender balance in management positions in their organisations. I want to applaud the efforts of so many Australian organisations that are improving gender balance in public roles, and actively encourage those who still have more to do to take up the opportunity, to take up the challenge and to deliver.
Order. Senator Payne. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Government Services, Senator Ruston. How many Australians were pursued under the government's illegal robo-debt scheme?
The Minister representing the Minister for Government Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thanks Senator Brown for her question. Senator Wood may be aware that on the 19th of November, the Minister for Government Services, the Honourable Stuart Robert, made an announcement in relation to further refinements in relation to the income compliance program. Those measures were designed to strengthen and to improve the program that was introduced by the Labor Party in 2011. However, the program changes are designed to make it more robust by requiring more information to be provided in relation to people when we are seeking to determine whether a debt has actually been incurred. As you'd be aware from announcements last year, the government is no longer using income averaging solely as a reason for raising a debt. However, as you would also be aware, this matter is before the courts, and so any further comment in relation to this—
Order. Senator Brown.
Direct relevance. There was only one question, and I've waited for a while, and I would like the minister to actually answer the question I asked.
You've reminded the minister of your question. There was an assertion in the question about the legality of it, so the minister is in order, being directly relevant, addressing that. I think there was the word illegal. The minister can be in order directing that as well. I've allowed you to remind the minister of the question, and I call the minister to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, as the senator would also be aware that at the time that this chamber was advised, as well as the other chamber, and it was also advised in the media that we would no longer be using income averaging with the ATO was the sole reason for determining a debt for somebody who potentially had been overpaid by Centrelink. We also advised that there was a review being undertaken. That review is currently underway and forms part of the process that is currently before the courts, and I am not in a position to preempt the outcome of the court's deliberations.
Senator Brown, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. How much money are those illegally pursued owed?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd refer the senator to my answer to the previous question, and that is that the review is on foot, and when I'm in a position to come back to this chamber with more information, I will do so.
Senator Brown, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. When will those illegally pursued be paid back?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I would once again refer the senator to my previous question when I advised her that there is a review underway at the moment in relation to the matters of which she has raised, and once that review is completed, she will be able to get the answer to her question.
Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I ask that further questions be placed on a notice paper. Thank you.
Now, as I flagged